what do you know about the Vietnam War? Was that too sudden?
Wait, but what do you know about the Vietnam War?
It's okay. No need to stress. I'm supposed to be doing all the talking anyway.
Chances are, a quick Google search will bring up the very broad and well-known facts. The surface facts. The clean and straightforward political facts. The Vietnam War was a long, costly armed conflict that pitted the communist regime of North Vietnam and its southern allies, the Viet Cong, against South Vietnam and its principal ally, the United States. The divisive war, increasingly unpopular at home, ended with the withdrawal of U.S. forces in 1973 and the unification of Vietnam under communist control 2 years later. More than 3 million people, including 58,000 Americans, were killed in this conflict. And have you noticed that the focus was actually drawn towards the American soldiers at one point? More than 3 million people, including 58,000 Americans, were killed in this conflict. Well, did you know that more than 3 million people, including 2 million Vietnamese civilians, were killed in this conflict? There's a whole other side of the story about the Vietnam War that sadly oftentimes goes overlooked. Expressing the same concern in his article, Vietnam War on Civilians, is Chase Matter of the American Conservative. He states, "The main reason we don't want to know about Vietnam is that it gave so much to not want to know about. Yes, Vietnam was a military defeat that killed some 58,000 Americans and left 75,000 severely disabled. Reason enough for many to stuff it down the memory hole. But what makes the memory of this war so worthy of repression is that its defining feature was mass atrocities against civilians." Mass atrocities? Atrocities like rape. That mostly speaks for itself. Massacres. Now, this wasn't just soldiers shooting civilians on a whim, though I will say that there was some of that. The killing of Vietnamese civilians was actually made into standard operating procedure by General Julian Ewell. Victory over the Viet Cong was to be achieved by kill ratios, to reach the point where the Viet Cong could no longer replenish its troops. Ewell assumed military command in 1968 and started Operation Speedy Express, a 6-month infantry assault on the Mekong Delta region, killing thousands of Vietnamese. Military vehicles running over civilians for sport. Hey, I don't know about you, but I'm bored. So let's go run over some civilians. Zippo missions, named for the trademark Zippo lighters that men used during the missions to burn down villages and crops. Indiscriminate shelling and bombardment. The bombs and shells could not tell a civilian from an enemy. They're kind of inanimate objects. Where the bomb will go, the bomb will go. Whoops, we hit some people. Whoops, there goes a village. Destruction of crops and drinking water. Troops routinely destroyed fields, polluted rivers, burned down homes, and religious pagodas. Between 1965 and 1967, 100,000 acres of forests were destroyed. Planes dropped Agent Orange to poison rice fields. Water buffaloes and pigs were routinely killed in their fields and pens. Confusion. Wait, confusion? Wait, yeah, confusion. Sometimes it was just plain old confusion that got someone killed. American soldiers typically found it impossible to distinguish the enemy from the civilians. The Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese looked just like the general South Vietnamese population. What's an informative video without statistics? I got some just for you guys. You're welcome. According to a study by Harvard Medical School and the University of Washington, there were 3.8 million deaths that resulted from the Vietnam War. As I mentioned before, 2 million of these deaths were innocent Vietnamese people. I thought this was South Vietnam and the US versus North Vietnam and the Viet Cong, but but somehow it kind of ended up seeming like both sides teamed up to kill as many civilians as possible.
Fail!
80% of all patients at provincial hospitals were civilian casualties. During the infamous Tet Offensive, 14,000 South Vietnamese civilians were killed, mostly by U.S. firepower. USA. In the Quang Tri province in South Vietnam, out of 350,000 villages, 11 were not damaged by bombing or artillery. 70 million liters of herbicidal agents were dumped across the countryside. Notably, one of the most famous ones being Agent Orange.
Agent Orange. Pretty much anyone who has studied the Vietnam War before will stumble upon this topic at one point.
Agent Orange was a powerful mixture of chemical defoliants. It was used during the Vietnam War by the U.S. military to clear entire forests so that the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong troops could not use them for cover. It was also used to kill crops so that the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong could not eat. This is very powerful stuff that we're talking about. Think about your typical garden weed killer and multiply that by like 1 billion. This stuff could clear entire forests in 2 days. So it was kind of a duh. And later on, it was discovered that Agent Orange causes serious health issues. Issues like tumors, birth defects, rashes, psychological symptoms, and cancer. These health issues popped up in U.S. servicemen and their families, but most notably it showed up in the Vietnamese population. The nation has reported that some 400,000 people were killed or maimed by exposure to herbicidal agents like Agent Orange. Vietnam claims 500,000 children were born with serious birth defects, while as many as 2 million people suffer from cancer or another illness caused by Agent Orange. To this very day, people are still suffering from Agent Orange that never even did anything to deserve it. And for the majority of these people, their ancestors never did anything to deserve it either. They just happened to be trying to mind their own business and accidentally got exposed to Agent Orange. You seem like a nice person. Imagine if you got cancer because your grandpa was looking for mushrooms or something during the Vietnam War and got exposed to Agent Orange, which was there because of a war that he wasn't even involved in the first place. That sucks. Cancer sucks. I want to close this up nicely. I don't want to leave you guys all depressed with your lost faith in humanity. So I'll say now that thankfully, when American soldiers found themselves on the opposite side of the planet in a foreign and new territory, some of them took the opportunity to explore and embrace the rich cultures that were all around them. So there's this one guy who recorded his observations of the Vietnamese villages and villagers while he was involved in the Vietnam War. The record is called The Religions of South Vietnam in Faith and Fact. It was written in 1967. Interestingly enough, towards the end he writes, "The attitude, reaction, and action of every American is a vital consideration, as the lowest man may cause the loss of many lives or may promote such rapport that many lives are saved by the simplest acts of kindness, consideration, concern, or interest. The American serviceman benefits many as he reveals interest in other people as human beings, even if their language, their culture, and their daily life patterns do differ from America." This guy gets it. Remember when I was talking about Zippo missions? Military operations that required soldiers to set villages and crops on fire with their Zippo lighters? It became popular during the war to have one Zippo lighter engraved with a personal message. And some of their messages were pretty interesting. A Zippo lighter from the Vietnam War era simply asks, "Why me?" Another Zippo lighter shows disillusionment and a poetic take on the pointlessness of war. It says, "We the unwilling, led by the unqualified, to kill the unfortunate, die for the ungrateful." You know what that is? That's hope for humanity. The Vietnamese civilians were put through almost relentless abuse during the war. Some awareness and understanding, some kindness, consideration, concern, or interest. These supposedly little insignificant things in the brutal face of war could have easily saved many lives and made many new friends. But then that brings up a question. If harmony and resolution can be found through such peaceful measures of kindness, why choose a method such as war that is based on violence, destruction, and chaos? Is politics really worth the lives of so many innocent people? But I guess it's a whole different discussion for next time. Thanks, guys.